We are here today to memorialize and remember one of our own, Major Gerald Bloomfield. We are honored to have joining us Major Bloomfield's wife Julie and her son Tony, his mother Shirley Spears and her husband Ron, his father Gerald Bloomfield and his wife Judy, his sisters Katie Kirsch and Paula Wallace, and their families, as well as many other members of his families and friends. Thank you for joining us today. We also have other distinguished guests today, including Dr. John Burrow, Executive Director of Marine Corps Systems Command, and Colonel Alan Pratt, Commanding Officer of Marine Corps Tactical Systems Support Activity, and his wife Kathy. Welcome. Major Bloomfield served the Marine Corps in two very special capacities. He was a Cobra pilot, and he was an engineer. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from two of his friends as they reflect on how Major Bloomfield, the aviator, and Major Bloomfield, the MCTISA engineer, served us. As an electrical engineer, Major Bloomfield was assigned to MCTISA from 20 July 2000 through 30 May 2003. He helped establish the Marine Corps Systems Integration Environment and contributed greatly to the accomplishment of MCTISA's overall mission. Subsequently, he was assigned to Marine Light Air Attack Helicopter Squadron 369, Marine Aircraft Group 39, 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, also here at Camp Pendleton. And though Jerry left us, he never forgot us. Around here, it's not unusual for helicopters to fly over MCTISA, but it is very unusual for them to fly just above the flagpole and have the vibration be so intense that it sets off all the car alarms around the quad. I would call or email Jerry each time. That's right, he did it more than once. And I let him know we knew it was him. He never once denied it. From Pendleton, Major Bloomfield was deployed to Iraq. Regretfully, on 2 November 2005, Major Bloomfield was lost in action while flying in support of security and stabilization operations near Ramadi, Iraq. While at MCTISA, Major Bloomfield epitomized the trait of leading by example. He tackled every task with determination, raw ability, and professional candor. His untiring efforts, positive attitude, and devotion to duty not only provided the leadership required to accomplish the mission, but also has been a positive influence on his peers and subordinates. While it has been 7 years since Major Bloomfield worked at MCTISA, the impact of his actions and leadership are still felt by those who knew him and had the great fortune to work with him. So it is with great honor that we are dedicating and naming the Ground Combat Element Lab after Major Gerald Bloomfield, a great man and heroic Marine. At this time, the Commanding Officer of Marine Corps Tactical Systems Support Activity, Colonel Alan Pratt, will say a few words.
Good morning. Dr. Burrow, Julie, Mom and Dad, if I can call you that, seems appropriate here. Colonel Whiteley. He's here. He's currently the Commanding Officer of Marine Aircraft Group 39 here aboard Camp Pendleton. But he was Jerry's squadron CEO in 2005. So thank you for coming, and probably share some of his thoughts too is throughout the day. If you want to talk to him, you can pass on some things about Jerry, I'm sure. I wasn't here in 2000 to 2003 when Jerry was here, but obviously he was quite a man, quite a husband, son, Marine officer. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here honoring what he did. And it's important to note the building that we're going to dedicate in his name. From the outside, it doesn't look like anything special, but what happens inside is the more important stuff. Once we get done with the ribbon cutting, we'll walk through. But our systems here are to support the Marines. And this particular lab supports the ground combat element. Those Marines on the ground were doing all the hard fighting. And that's what he was doing when he was shot down in 2005. So it's appropriate that this is the building that we name it in his honor. We have a couple folks here who are going to say a few words who knew Jerry. First is Major Douglas Lindemood. Major Lindemood came to MCTISA just a month ago. So It's interesting that somebody who knew Jerry so well is now part of McTisson. It fits very nicely. So from my standpoint, thank you all for coming, and I look forward to hearing a little bit more about Major Bloomfield from the next two folks.
Morning. I stand before you today humbled. I've been asked to speak about a man that was a giant in my life. He will be responsible for the remainder of my career as a Marine officer. In 2003, I was summoned, as many of my fellow aviators were, to participate in the invasion of Iraq. This deployment came on the heels of previous deployments, which, when complete, would leave me in the absence of my family for almost 2 years. I, like other Marines, have a family that I care about, and it was difficult and an arduous time for me in my life. And I must admit, it was somewhat of a low point in my career, although every Marine desires at his deepest level to serve in combat. It is difficult. While still in Iraq, following the invasion, my CO approached me and asked if I would like to attend the Aviation Safety Officers course in Monterey, California. I accepted, and upon my return, I checked into my unit as a newly minted ASO, or Aviation Safety Officer. The unit was back in the United States, having returned from Iraq. My department head was an energetic, well-educated major whom I'd never met before. His first impression must have been that he inherited a burnout captain, set on leaving the Marine Corps at his first opportunity. Over the course of the next year, this major took on one of his most prominent roles, both in life and in the life of the squadron and in my life. If I were to sum it up, I would say he was an encourager. He was completely and wholly unselfish, to a degree that I'd never seen before in the Marine Corps. Many leaders try to fake genuine concern for their subordinates. Not for this man, it came naturally. I found myself inspired by his actions, and in many cases I would try to emulate his behavior. He was truly impressive. He could be found having real, genuine conversations with lance corporals and privates in a manner that you might think you were witnessing a dialogue between a father and a son. He taught young Marines math classes in the evenings. He had a genuine concern for new lieutenants checking into the squadron, and most importantly, from my perspective, he offered a challenge for me to excel in the face of adversity. He demanded more of me than any other OIC I'd had before. He helped me set goals for my success in flying qualifications. He would often place me in positions where I would be directly responsible for advising the CO on matters of safety, placing his own department's reputation at the risk of my performance, something that is somewhat unheard of in a pure conscious community such as aviation. In short, he told me in both verbal and nonverbal manners that he trusted me. He trusted my judgment. I'd never served under someone who had invested so much in his subordinates. I developed over time a spark of enthusiasm that still burns today. A vast majority of my current leadership skills were birthed during that short year that I served under this major. He was a tremendous leader. His influence in my life affected my life as a Marine officer like no other. I remember one time late in my deployment in Okinawa, he approached me at a social event. He placed his hand on my shoulder and he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Sweaty," that's my call sign. "You've achieved more than I set out for you, and I'm very proud of you. And the CEO's proud of you too." I said thanks, but to be honest, I wasn't sure what to say, because he was the one responsible in part for my newfound efforts. The time soon approached for me to transfer from the gunfighters to the training squadron. I would be leaving my unit and transferring to another Huey Cobra squadron that teaches new pilots to fly the aircraft, those that are fresh from flight school. My OIC once again approached me in an effort to encourage me not to leave the Marine Corps. He told me I had a brilliant mind, that can be debated, and that I should apply for grad school in Monterey. I'd heard him talk about it on many occasions in the office. And I took it to heart. I wasn't sure I wanted to get out of the military. I wanted to pursue other avenues of employment. Or I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in. He was, of course, insistent as ever that I look at all of my options. I reported to my new command in the summer, leaving the gunfighters, and that was a very difficult thing to do. They were a part of me, as all squadron members experience. And you grow up with those people, and you learn to face adversity, and it was very difficult to leave the squadron. I truly enjoyed serving with them, and I certainly enjoyed serving under my OIC. Early one morning in November, I arrived to work only to learn that my former squadron had lost an aircraft in Iraq to enemy fire. We of course knew who it was. And months later, I took out my notes from days gone by. And I reviewed them and I explored what options I might have for future employment. The words of my past OIC echoed in my head. Sweaty, apply for the grad school. It's just right for you. I applied and I was accepted. My goal would be to serve at a tour at McTissa, right where Beeve served. I worked as hard as I could on my tour at NPS. There was never a week that didn't pass when I didn't think about Beeve and his influence in my life. How he set goals, how he demanded higher performance. On March 31st, 2010, I walked across the stage to receive my master's degree in information technology. As I was handed my diploma, I thanked the Lord for his provision in my life, for my family, my endurance, and the influence of one energetic man who encouraged me to push myself just a bit. I checked into McTissa on the 21st of May. One of the first people I was introduced to was Sean Stone. On learning that I was a Cobra pilot, he asked me, "Oh, did you know Major Bloomfield? He was a Cobra pilot, stationed here at McTissa. We're going to dedicate a building in his name." My response was simple and sure. Yes, I do. He's one of the reasons I'm here. I'd like to address two groups this morning. First, to the members of the Bloomfield family. This vignette that I shared with you should be no surprise. The net sum of Beeve's life was unselfishness. And that doesn't come easy, and it doesn't happen by accident. There were things that you did in his life that made that happen, and I want to thank you. Your influence in his life as a father, mother, sister, wife, friend, paid huge dividends to our nation, both in the people he affected and those he died for. His final sacrifice was a conclusion to a tremendous story that will be told for many years. Next, since young Marines and civilians will occupy this building, I'd like to choose to speak to those of you in the audience that will be their supervisors. You have a precious asset that you encounter every day. It is your subordinates. Vigorous, active, and energetic young subordinates. Never forget that young men and women, civilian and Marine alike, will look at you every day as a leader. You may influence them for good or for bad. Be patient with them. Invest in them, even as Major Bloomfield invested in me. Take their lives seriously. Show genuine concern for them. And consider carefully your actions before them. Exemplify honor, commitment, and courage. Don't ask too much of them, but most importantly, don't ask too little. The building you occupy is dedicated to a man who lived out these qualities each day of his life. Was it easy? No, I'm sure it wasn't. However, if you were to ask him now, he would tell you it was no doubt worth the effort. There's a story that I found that, as I was reading last night, it said on a fall day in Sierra Nevada mountain range, there was a man who took an afternoon hike. The temperature dropped precipitously, and clouds began to form. Realizing a storm was approaching, the man headed back to where he left his car, but on the way, he was caught in a white. The hours passed, and he wandered in circles, unable to see even 2 feet ahead of him. He felt his energy leaving him. And a deadly lethargy crept in. Yet, he knew that if he listened to his body and sat down to rest, he would never get up again. After wandering a few more minutes, he finally gave in and decided to rest, knowing he would die soon. But as he sat down, he felt something next to him. He brushed away the snow and found the body of someone like him who had been caught in the storm. He felt for a pulse, and after finding there was still a small trickle of life Through superhuman strength, he lifted the body onto his shoulders and hoisted it away a mere 100 feet before he found the cabin door. The cabin was only 100 feet away, where the hiker was ready to give up. He didn't see it because of the blizzard, but once he attempted to save someone else and started moving, the cabin materialized before him. Inside there was a fireplace, a man cooking dinner. Both of the travelers were saved. Major Bloomfield had a secret. He put others first. He found other people and he invested in them. And I think that's why he was such a giant of a man. Thank you. I'd like to now introduce
Thank you. Wow. Julie, thanks for asking me to be here today. I was honored when you called. And, Colonel, thanks for putting this on. This is super. Holy cow. This thing's great. I have a whole bunch of these for all the elements. That's great. It's going a long ways. It's great. I'm up here to talk about Jerry's time at McTissa and talk about him as a friend and a fellow Marine. When Marines gather and they talk about other Marines, inevitably there'll be somebody in the discussion that you don't know about. So what Marines do is say, well, what did he do? Or what's he do? So it goes something like this. Do you know Jerry Bloomfield? No, what's he do? Well, Jerry's you fill in the blank. The blank is usually filled in with, as Marines know, your military occupational specialty. What you did as a career identifier, who you are in the Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps' eyes. So in Jerry's case, they say, well, he's a Cobra pilot. In my case, they say, well, he's a commo. But in Jerry's case, what he did was so much more. And the fact that we're dedicating a building to him and in his honor at McTissa is a testament to that. So beyond being a Cobra pilot, which you heard about today in a very, very good way, very moving way, beyond being just a Cobra pilot, he was many other things to us among the people you see here today around us. What did he do? He was an engineer. And that's fitting that we have a facility like this named in his honor because he was an electrical engineer from the Naval Postgraduate School. And as many of you know, when you go to the Naval Postgraduate School, you get your degree, your master's degree, and that's a great thing. It's a good honor. It's a great thing to have that degree under your belt. What you may not know is there's a payback for having gotten that. And your payback is you either go to Systems Command on the East Coast or you come to McTissa on the West Coast. And Jerry drew the straw where he ended up out here at McTissa on the West Coast. So this is where he was doing his payback tour when I arrived here in 1999 and met Jerry. He was working as the head of the architecture branch, which was part of the Systems Integration Facility, which is a vision of the commanding officer at the time, to create a place where the Marine Corps could operationally test equipment, command and control equipment, decision-making aids, support equipment for warfighting skills before that equipment got into the hands of the Marines. I mean, just think, that's genius, to have a place where we as Marines can test equipment the way Marines are going to use the equipment before they get their hands on it. And Jerry was a part of that machine when I got here. And so I think he was happy to be here doing that. He certainly looked happy to be here doing that. And it was very heady times at that time because we were preparing for war. And it meant a lot to us to have this gear work. So what did he do? He was an engineer. But he was also in charge of the architecture branch. Now, so what did he do? He was a leader. Second. Okay, so what did the architecture branch do? Not sure what they did exactly, but they did a lot of good things around here to make the engine run. And I don't know, did we ever figure out what the architecture branch is supposed to be doing? But anyhow, he was in charge of it, and he made it work. He made the engineers in there do a good day's work and to good results in the tests that we were doing for Marines in the field. The branches consisted of both Marines and civilians, and being a leader of Marines and civilians is a hard thing to do. So a Marine, when you go to a Marine and you say, do something, if that thing is legal, he will do what you told him to do. So let me let that sink in for a second. He had Marines and civilians. Marines will do what you tell them to do. Okay, so civilians don't always do what you tell them to do. So that's tough. Having been a civilian for the last 5 years, I get that a little bit more than I got it when I was here as a Marine. But civilians, more than Marines, need to believe in what it is you want them to do. You need to understand why it is you want them to do it. They need to kind of agree with what you want them to do and why you want them to do it. And then if they have the time and the energy, then they'll go do it, right? Is that fair to say?
No.
Got great civilians here. Jerry understood how to bring the best out of them in his branch. He had Marines that he drove to their limits and got the best out of them. Likewise, in a way that I never could, he drove those civilians and got the best out of them as well, and made a team out of them, which was important for the mission of the command. What did he do? He was a warrior. So yeah. All Marines are warriors. We're warriors of the Corps. But while he was here, as part of the architecture branch, leading a part of McDissa here, certainly a great gig. You come to work in the morning at 7 o'clock, go home in the evening at 5 o'clock, get to see your family at night. It's not particularly tough work here. You know, it's hard day's work, but you're not gritty, you're not getting shot at. It's not hard in that sense. But in spite of having all that, he volunteered to take a system into harm's way for Marines who needed it. He headed up a det. He took a command and control system from here that we tested here, made sure it worked, packaged it up, and he led the det over to the sandbox to deliver that gear to the Marines. He didn't have to do that. So the fact that he was a warrior and had that warrior spirit drove him. I say he didn't have to do it. He did have to do it. I mean, it was a calling for him. So he was compelled to do it. But he didn't have to volunteer for that. But he did. What did he do? He was a family man. He created a lot of balance in my life. We'd do ball games with Ryan, go motorcycle rides, mud runs, right? And I just got reminded of a Halloween party. This is great. We had this bowl of candy on here. This is a good story. Bowl of candy on there. And my job was, well, anyhow, it doesn't matter. But he always had these crazy ideas of how to make things fun after work. He had a lot of balance in his life. It was intense here during the day. It was also intense after work with Jerry. And we always had a lot of fun. And so what else did he do? He was a friend and a confidant. And so as part of getting ready for today, I canvassed a lot of folks who knew Jerry while he was here and said, hey, I need some stories so I can have a good one to tell during this speech so I'm not up there empty-handed. Because there's lots of stories to tell. And I got them all. And I can't share one of them with you. Because I got to tell you, they all end up with Jerry calling it like it is in the end. And if I told you a story, I'd end up offending at least one of you in the room here. So I'm not gonna do it. But someone more drunk than me. But Jerry always called it like it was, and we valued him for that. You could always go to him and expect to get the honest truth, at least as he saw it. You know, he didn't mask it. He told you the way it was. So, in closing, what did he do? He was a Cobra pilot. What did he do? He was an engineer. What did he do? He was a leader. What did he do? He was a warrior. What did he do? He was a family man, and he was a friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Lindemann and Mr. Rowland. It is now time to officially dedicate. Come on, okay. Thank you. It's now time to officially dedicate and open the Major Gerald Bloomfield Ground Combat Element Building. Over there you see the sign that will be erected on the outside of the building. And right here next to me is the memorial plaque that will be permanently mounted inside the building. We'd now like to ask Major Bloomfield's wife, mother, and father to join Colonel Pratt for the ribbon cutting. If we just pause a moment to get a picture once everybody's ready.
Well, it says to open these things wide.
Wide.
I got the instructions. Right at the
Okay,
end.
on the ready, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, cut. Julie, if you remain up here with the colonel.
have a small one for Julie. All right. Looks the same way. The Bloomfield building is dedicated in memory of Major Gerald Bloomfield II, November 15th, 1966 to November 2nd, 2005. Gunshot 66, we will never forget. Major Bloomfield served at McTissa from 20 July 2000 to 30 May 2003. During this period, he served as McTissa's Systems Architecture and Engineering Officer in Charge, Systems Engineering and Integration Support Division. He tackled every task with determination, raw ability, and professional candor. His innovative accomplishments created a lasting impact on McTissa's systems integration environment mission capability. He performed with distinction, demonstrating superb leadership, and contributed greatly to the accomplishment of McTissa's mission of fielding reliable and interoperable command and control systems, and helped establish the Marine Corps Systems Integration environment. Major Bloomfield was killed in action 2 November 2005 when his AH-1 Whiskey Super Cobra helicopter crashed while flying in support of security and stabilization operations near Sadah, Iraq. He was with Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 369, Marine Aircraft Group 39, 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, 1 Marine Expeditionary Force, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, Camp Pendleton, California, at the time of his death. Dedicated summer 2010.